The first sign was the silence. Not the kind that happens during an argument. This was colder, thicker. It filled the townhouse like fog. Nathan had stopped humming in the mornings. No more gentle knocking on the bathroom door. No more half-smiles while folding baby onesies. He still showed up at dinner, still checked emails beside her on the couch. But he wasn't there. Not really. Then one night, without warning, he dropped the words like broken glass. "I can't do this." Lena looked up from the crib instruction manual, screwdriver still in hand. "Do what?" He stood in the doorway, coat already on. "All of it. You. The baby. The life we planned." She froze. "What the hell are you talking about?" "I don't breathe here," he said. "It's like I'm being buried alive in this perfect little world." She blinked. "You built this world, Nathan." "I thought I wanted it," he murmured. "I was wrong." She stood slowly. "I'm due in 6 weeks." He nodded, emotionless. "I know." Lena stared at him, waiting for the explanation that never came. There was no other woman. No dramatic fight. Just a man unraveling quietly, like a thread slipping through a needle, never tying off. She didn't cry, not then. She sat back down, finished tightening the screws on the crib rail, and whispered, "Leave, then." Nathan left without looking back. And just like that, Lena became someone else. If this story resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and spread the word, and tell us where you're watching from. The weeks that followed blurred into something clinical. Prenatal visits, baby books, checklists. Friends called. She ignored them. Her mother visited twice, tried to stay, but Lena sent her away. She couldn't stand the pity. The nursery stayed unfinished. The room too quiet. She refused to name the baby alone. One evening, she sat in the half-painted room, her belly heavy beneath a worn hoodie, and whispered into the silence, "You don't need a father to be whole. You need a mother who remembers who the hell she is." That night, Nathan sent one final email. "I'll wire support monthly. I hope you find happiness, Lena." She deleted it without reading the rest. When the contractions started, she called a cab. No husband. No hand to squeeze. Just a nurse who held her wrist and whispered, "You're doing so well." She delivered a boy. 6 pounds, 2 ounces. A full head of dark hair. He looked nothing like Nathan. She didn't cry in the hospital. She waited until they were home, alone, in the crib. The one she built herself squeaked slightly as she laid him down. That's when the tears came. Not loud. Just quiet ones, pooling at the corners of her eyes as she stared at the life that had arrived in spite of the one that left. She named him Eli. Not after anyone. Just a name she found one night in a book. Short, strong, soft around the edges. Nathan never asked about the birth. And Lena never told him. She changed her number, packed away old photos, and sold the townhouse. Moved 2 cities over. Bought a second-hand stroller, and went back to part-time gallery work. No one there knew her as his wife. Just a single mother with sharp eyes and a spine that refused to bend. And while Nathan floated between venture deals and curated vacations, Lena planted roots. She raised her son in the silence he left behind, until it no longer felt like silence at all. Lena woke to the sound of Eli's soft breathing beside her. The apartment was still dim, the first hint of morning sneaking through the curtains. She watched her son sleep, his tiny fingers curled against her arm. 3 months old and already dreaming like the world hadn't tried to break them before he took his first breath. The memory of that night came in flashes. The sterile light of the hospital. Her scream into no one's hand. A nurse placing Eli on her chest. And the question that followed in every form, is the father coming? He didn't. He never even asked what day Eli was born. But before the silence, there had been 1,000 cuts. Flashbacks surfaced without permission. Nathan leaning against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, lips pulled tight in false concern. "Are you sure you told me we had that appointment today?" he'd ask. "You've been forgetting things lately." She had nodded back then, confused. "I'm positive. You saw the reminder on the fridge." "No, I didn't." His voice flat. "Certain. Maybe you imagined saying it." She began second-guessing herself constantly. Appointments. Grocery lists. Conversations. He was always calm when she wasn't, which somehow made her feel like the storm. When she'd told him the baby's heartbeat was irregular in the 2nd trimester, he'd frowned and said, "Maybe don't overreact. Stress is worse for the baby than anything else." And when she brought up how often he'd come home late, how the lies about meetings began stacking, he'd looked at her like a stranger. "You've always had trust issues, Lena. That's your pattern." She carried those words into labor, into the nursery, into the first diaper change, the first 2 a.m. feeding, the first moment Eli smiled without needing anything. But now, slowly, something inside her was growing back. Eli cooed and stirred beside her. She smiled. She hadn't just survived. She was starting to come back to herself. By day, she worked quietly in a modest art gallery downtown. It wasn't glamorous, but it was peaceful. She curated exhibits, rearranged frames, sold small prints. No one asked about her past. No one recognized the last name. She dropped Ward completely. Just Lena Carr now. And then there were the headlines. They found her by accident, while buying snacks at the store. A tabloid on the rack. Nathan Ward's billion-dollar escape. Yacht romance with socialite heiress. There he was, shirtless, tan, laughing beside a woman who looked like she'd never heard the word rejection. He was pouring champagne into her mouth as photographers swarmed. She stared at the image. He looked lighter, carefree, like fatherhood had never brushed past his shoulder. She didn't buy the magazine, just walked out, went home, kissed Eli on the forehead as he napped in his stroller. "You have me," she whispered, "and I'll never vanish for a photo op." At night, she sketched. She hadn't drawn in years. But something about Eli's face, his innocence, made her want to put softness back into the world. One night, as she cleaned her brushes, she paused and looked at her reflection in the dark window. She didn't recognize the woman from before. This one had fire behind her eyes and steel in her spine. The years didn't sprint. They moved slowly, quietly, like Lena herself. By Eli's third birthday, the apartment was smaller than she remembered, but fuller. Crayon sketches lined the fridge. Tiny shoes cluttered the hallway. A plastic giraffe floated in the bathtub. Her life, once gutted by abandonment, was now messy with purpose. She worked mornings at the gallery and spent evenings tracing the shape of her son's joy. He was inquisitive, sweet-tempered, and sharp, so much sharper than Nathan had ever been. Sometimes, when he laughed in a certain pitch or furrowed his brows in thought, she caught flashes of the man she used to love. But only flashes. The rest of Eli was hers. Nathan had disappeared. He never sent a birthday card. Never asked for a photo. Not even through lawyers. Just vanished into his yachts and parties, his face still popping up occasionally in magazines and financial columns. Nathan Ward, tech maverick, visionary investor, world's most eligible bachelor. She didn't reach out. She never would. So when the envelope arrived, she almost didn't open it. It was tucked between junk mail, sealed in thick cream paper, with her name written in sharp, deliberate cursive, Lena Carr. No return address. Inside, a gold invitation card shimmered beneath her fingertips. "You are cordially invited to an exclusive private celebration at the Glass House, 19, Glenbrook Lane. Saturday, 8 p.m. Formal attire required." No host name, no event listed. Just a gold family crest at the bottom, stylized with the letter W. Her fingers tightened on the card. It was Nathan's family crest. She'd seen it once, embossed into a bookplate in his father's study. He used to joke about it. Old money branding. "We keep it around for vanity." She set the card down like it might burn her. It had been 3 years. She hadn't heard his voice since the night he walked out with a coat over one shoulder and excuses in his throat. Why now? Why her? That night, she sat in the kitchen, legs folded under her, watching Eli color dinosaurs in a worn sketchbook. Her phone sat untouched on the counter. She thought about tossing the invitation, pretending it never arrived. But something kept her hand still. Was it anger? Closure? Or just unfinished wounds? At 11:17 p.m., she texted the babysitter. Just in case. Saturday came fast. She didn't go shopping. She didn't glam up. She wore the one black dress that never failed her. Simple, structured, quiet confidence. Hair pinned back. No lipstick. Just the same earrings she'd worn to her son's baptism. As she drove through the city, the address led her further out, past where traffic thinned and roads wound like ribbons into wealthy hills. The glass house sat on the edge of a cliff, all steel and glass and quiet arrogance. Valets in black waited outside like shadows. Lena hesitated behind the wheel. This was a mistake. But then she remembered Nathan's last words. "I need to find myself." Maybe he had. Maybe she had, too. She handed her keys to the valet and stepped inside. The foyer was vast, echoing with soft jazz and expensive perfume. Guests in gowns and tuxedos glided past her, all perfectly placed. And at the top of a curved glass staircase stood a man in a slate gray suit, drink in hand, mid-conversation. Nathan. Older, broader. His hair styled, his posture rehearsed. And beside him, a woman. Younger, taller, glossy. Lena didn't flinch. But Nathan did. He looked up and saw her. The champagne glass in his hand tilted slightly. And for the first time in 3 years, his world cracked. The music swelled just as Nathan saw her. At first, he didn't move. Just stared from the landing, blinking like his mind needed time to catch up. Lena stood in the center of the marble foyer, her posture composed, her expression unreadable. She didn't smile. She didn't wave. She simply met his gaze and held it. It was enough. Guests passed between them like ghosts, laughing, mingling, but the space between them felt carved out, private. Electric. Beside Nathan, the woman in the red dress tugged on his sleeve. Nathan? Are you listening? He turned his head slightly, forced a tight smile, and excused himself without a word. Lena watched him descend the staircase like a man walking toward his own reckoning. She didn't move. Lena, he said softly, stopping just a few feet away. She tilted her head. So it was you. He nodded, eyes scanning her face like a map he'd once memorized and forgotten. I wasn't sure you'd come. You weren't sure I'd get the invitation. He said nothing. They stood in silence for a long beat. Then she glanced past him toward the woman upstairs, who now watched from the railing confused, curious. Pretty, Lena said. Does she know about the first one? Nathan blinked. The first what? The first family you walked out on. His lips parted slightly, but the words caught. I didn't know how to reach you, he offered weakly. That's funny, she said, her tone cool. Because my number never changed. And your name is still on Eli's birth certificate. A muscle twitched in his jaw. Is he here? Nathan asked. Lena blinked. This isn't the place for him. I didn't mean tonight. He ran a hand through his hair. I didn't know how to come back. You don't, she said flatly. You left before the crib was built, Nathan. You don't just show up 3 years later in a suit with a catered apology. He looked down, ashamed, or at least good at pretending. Can we talk? Somewhere quieter, he asked. Lena hesitated. Then someone brushed past her, placing a hand gently on her lower back. A man, broad-shouldered, clean-shaven, dark-eyed. She turned slightly toward him, and the stranger nodded at Nathan with polite distance. I'll be right there, she told him softly. He walked away, giving them space. Nathan watched him with barely concealed suspicion. Who is that? He asked. Lena looked him straight in the eyes. The man who didn't run. Nathan didn't speak. His throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. Around them, the party carried on, glasses clinking, laughter echoing through high ceilings, but the air between them was taut with things unsaid. I didn't bring him here for drama, Lena said. I brought him because I have nothing to hide anymore. Not pain. Not anger. Not my son. Not myself. Nathan's eyes glistened, just barely. Can I see him? She paused. You can try, she said, but don't expect him to know who you are. Then she turned and walked away. Nathan stood motionless in the middle of his own party, watching Lena disappear into the crowd like smoke through glass. For the first time in years, he didn't know what to say or how to move. He turned back toward the staircase. The woman in red, Isabel, was still there, sipping her drink slowly, eyes narrowed. Everything okay? She asked when he finally returned to her side. Nathan hesitated. Yeah, just an old friend. Isabel cocked her head. She didn't look like a friend. He offered a half-smile. It's complicated. That was the first truth he'd told all night. Isabel didn't press. She never did. She was good at pretending not to see beneath the surface. But others at the party weren't so subtle. As he moved through the crowd, handshakes came slower. Some guests glanced toward Lena as she spoke with another man near the open bar. A few whispered. Nathan caught snippets. That's his ex, right? Is that her new guy? They say he's a silent investor. Nathan clenched his jaw and took another drink. His mind buzzed louder than the music. He hadn't expected her to come. Hell, he hadn't even known if the invitation had reached her. It had been sent through a discreet service with no sender name. Just a risk. A quiet, desperate act wrapped in gold foil. And now she was here, stronger, sharper, impossible to ignore. But it wasn't just her presence that shook him. It was the man beside her. Nathan watched them now. How Lena's body angled slightly toward him, how her laugh softened. The man said little but didn't need to. His presence was effortless, grounded, dangerous. Nathan's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, screen lighting up with a name he hadn't seen in months. Avery, private investigator. He stepped into a side hallway, away from the noise. You said you didn't want to know? Avery's voice rasped without preamble. I changed my mind, Nathan said tightly. Who is he? Name's Victor Lane. Low profile. Very private. Inherited a shipping empire overseas, sold it, reinvested into tech. Quietly owns chunks of companies, including one of your competitors. Net worth? Likely more than yours. Nathan didn't speak. And the woman? I know who she is, Nathan snapped. I just didn't know who she became. Avery paused. You want me to dig deeper? No, Nathan said after a moment. I'll handle it. He ended the call and returned to the main room. But the music felt louder now, the lights too harsh. Everyone seemed to be looking at him, and at her. He approached the bar, his hand gripping the edge tighter than necessary. Lena turned before he could speak. You're staring, she said calmly. Can we talk? Just us? He asked, voice low. She glanced at Victor, who stepped away without protest, nodding to her like a man who trusted her completely. They stood by the balcony windows. Nathan swallowed. That man, he means something to you? He means what you never did, she replied. Stability. Respect. I made mistakes, he said, eyes glassy now. I know that. You didn't make mistakes, Nathan. You made choices. Over and over. And now you're uncomfortable that I didn't stay ruined. She turned to leave, but not before she caught it. The look on his face. The one he wore the day he walked away from her pregnant belly and unfinished nursery. The one that said he'd won, that he was free. Only now, that look was different. It cracked. It broke. Because for the first time in his life, Nathan realized he had become a guest at his own reckoning. The party ended without fanfare. Guests filtered out with champagne-stained smiles and gift bags they'd forget by morning. Nathan stayed behind, hands buried in his pockets, standing alone in the hallway outside his study. He didn't return to Isabel. He barely said goodbye. Instead, he wandered. The silence of the mansion was sudden, unfamiliar. It pressed in like static, too loud for a man who'd built his life on distractions. He entered his study and shut the door behind him. The room smelled faintly of old wood and untouched paper. He moved toward the desk, where Lena had once sat during his late-night meetings, barefoot and laughing softly at his typos. He opened a drawer. For no reason. And there it was. The phone. Not his. Hers. A slim, older model. One he hadn't seen in years. It must have been slipped into his coat or pocket sometime during the party. How he hadn't noticed was beyond him. Or maybe Lena had meant for him to find it. He sat down, staring at the screen. It powered on without a password. There were no apps, no contacts. Just one photo in the gallery. He opened it. A boy, no more than 3 years old. Hair tousled, cheeks flushed with the kind of joy that only comes from running barefoot through summer grass. He wore a paint-splattered shirt and held a stick like a sword. And his smile, wide, crooked, familiar. Nathan's chest tightened. The boy had his eyes. His mouth. Even that small freckle near the right temple. He couldn't look away. It was him. His son. And he'd missed it all. His hand trembled slightly as he set the phone down. It buzzed softly, a second file opened automatically. A voice memo. He didn't remember tapping it. Maybe he hadn't. Then Lena's voice filled the room, quiet and tired. You're not here. I'm not even sure why I'm recording this, but maybe I need to say it out loud. He took his first step today. He said ball. He clapped when he did it, like he knew he was doing something big, and I just stood there crying like an idiot. A pause. A shaky breath. You'll never hear this. And maybe that's better. But I hope one day you feel it, the weight of what you walked away from. You won't know the sound of his laugh. You won't know how he curls into me when he's scared. And that's not revenge. It's just truth. Nathan covered his mouth, breathing hard. She hadn't sent it, but she'd saved it. And now he was hearing it far too late. He pressed his palms into his face, trying to erase the sound, the image, the ache. The door creaked open. It was Isabel, her heels soft on the hardwood. Party's over, she said gently. He didn't turn. I have a son, he whispered. She paused. Is it hers? He nodded. Do you want to be part of his life? I don't even know how to start. Isabel exhaled, the kind of breath that sounds like goodbye. Then maybe you should have thought of that before you disappeared. She left the room. Nathan stayed where he was. And in the silence that followed, he pressed play again. The boys' laughter in the background. Lena's quiet voice cracking. and the weight of everything he'd missed crashing down like the ocean he once escaped to. Nathan hadn't left the house in 2 days. He'd watched the photo 100 times. The boy, his boy, laughing mid-run, tiny hands lifted in triumph. A moment frozen forever in a world Nathan had chosen to walk away from. Now he couldn't look away. He sat at his desk surrounded by silence, the city alive just beyond the windows. Emails piled up. Missed calls blinked on his screen. Isabel had stopped texting altogether. He didn't care. Instead, he called someone else. "Avery," he said when the line picked up. "I need you to find out everything you can about Victor Lane." The voice on the other end didn't miss a beat. "You said no digging." "I changed my mind," Nathan snapped. "I want background. Assets. Connections. What he does. Who he works with. Who he protects." A pause. Then, already on it. He ended the call and leaned back, rubbing his temples. Victor Lane. The man standing beside Lena at the party, hand on her lower back like he belonged there. The man with eyes that didn't waver. The man Lena trusted. Nathan had never seen her trust like that before. 3 hours later, a file arrived in his inbox. He opened it slowly, unsure why his stomach turned. Victor Lane, private investor. Inherited a global shipping conglomerate at 29, sold it by 32, and invested heavily into clean energy and litigation startups. One of those firms? Ridgeview Legal Strategies. Nathan's blood ran cold. Ridgeview had been the same firm that stonewalled one of his merger proposals 2 years ago. Quiet, ruthless, impossible to penetrate. Victor wasn't just Lena's new partner. He was her protector, her weapon. Nathan shut the file and paced. He knew how this worked. Men like Victor didn't just fall into relationships. They planned, calculated. But what if Lena had done the same? The idea stabbed him. Had he been watched this whole time? He walked to the window. The city blinked below. Then he noticed it, a black car, parked directly across the street. Same one from the night before. Same tinted windows. Not a cab. Not delivery. Nathan narrowed his eyes. He picked up his phone and dialed again. "Is this you?" he asked as soon as Avery answered. "Outside my building?" "No," came the reply. "But if someone's watching, they're not mine." Nathan's mouth went dry. "Then who the hell is it?" He ended the call and pulled the curtains shut. Across the city, Lena stirred sugar into her tea. Victor sat across from her, phone in hand, calm as always. "He's digging into you," he said quietly. "I intercepted the request through one of my firms. He's got a private investigator on payroll." Lena didn't flinch. "I expected that," she replied. Victor studied her. "He's unpredictable." "No," she said. "He's afraid." Victor raised an eyebrow. "Of losing control?" he asked. "Of realizing he never had it." She stood and walked to the window, watching Eli play in the garden with Victor's dog. The boy laughed as the golden retriever chased a ball, his giggles echoing through the open window. "He doesn't even know who Nathan is," she said softly. Victor joined her. "And that's the power, Lena. You know everything about him. He knows nothing about the person you became." Lena nodded, eyes fixed on her son. "And now," she said, "he's finally learning what it feels like to be seen without being able to hide." Nathan sat in his home office long after midnight, the room dimly lit by the glow of his monitor. The folder on his screen was still open, Victor Lane's background, assets, affiliations, charitable foundations. A man who could buy and sell entire blocks of Nathan's world without breaking a sweat. But it wasn't Victor that haunted him. It was Eli, his son. 3 years of memories he would never have. First words, first steps, first fears, all entrusted to someone else. A man who had earned them. He closed the file and reached for Lena's old phone again, the one she'd slipped into his pocket like a ghost carrying its own message. The photo of Eli still sat on the screen. He opened it once more, paused, then noticed something. A second audio file. One he hadn't heard. Titled simply, "For Him." He pressed play. The first few seconds were quiet. Just static, maybe the rustle of sheets. Then Lena's voice broke through. Soft. Exhausted. "If you're listening to this, it means you found what I left you. I'm not doing this for revenge, Nathan. I'm doing it because you need to know the kind of silence you created." A pause. He leaned in, breathing shallow. "I waited, you know. I waited to see if you'd show up for the birth, for a call, for a birthday. But each day that passed, I understood more. You didn't forget. You chose absence." Nathan shut his eyes. The words hit harder than anything Victor could have said. There's a difference between disappearing and vanishing. Vanishing is what the body does. Disappearing is what the soul does when it's no longer seen. But here's what you didn't erase, Eli. He's not your shadow. He's not your echo. He is his own son. He laughs when he paints, and he hums in his sleep. He holds my pinky when he's scared. You will never know that kind of closeness. And that's not punishment. That's just the truth you earned. Nathan pressed his fist into his chest like the ache could be muted. But it throbbed louder. He knows someone loves him. He doesn't know it should have been you. The message ended. Just that. No signature. No anger. Only a quiet resignation that made everything worse. Nathan placed the phone face down and exhaled shakily. He walked to the window again. The black car was gone. But something else had taken its place. Emptiness. Guilt. Loss. And not the kind that could be undone with a call or a bouquet or a check. He pulled open his desk drawer, searching for something, anything, until his fingers landed on a tiny velvet box. He hadn't opened it in years. Inside was the engagement ring he'd given Lena 5 years ago. A perfect circle. Brilliant cut. Expensive, because back then he thought money made things permanent. Now it just felt like an artifact from another life. He closed the box and set it aside. Then, for the first time since the party, he picked up his phone and typed her name. But her number was still gone. Deleted. Disconnected. Lena was done waiting. Across the city, Lena lay beside her son, his hand curled into hers as he slept. The baby monitor buzzed softly, and the quiet of her home wrapped around her like something earned. She hadn't needed to listen to the message she left behind. Because she knew, if he'd heard it, truly heard it, then he'd finally understand. She didn't just raise a child. She buried the version of herself who once believed Nathan Ward was irreplaceable. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. Nathan found it wedged beneath the morning paper on his doorstep, thick and matte, stamped with an embossed seal. No return address. But as soon as he saw the crest, Ridgeview Legal Strategies, his stomach sank. Inside were 3 pages. The first, a petition for modification of parental rights and recognition of paternity. The second, a notarized statement from Lena Carr. And the third, a photograph of Eli holding a drawing. The crayon lines were rough, the stick figures uneven, but one word was written in bright blue letters above the little boy's head. Me. Nathan stared at the paper so long his coffee went cold beside him. They weren't threatening to sue. They were declaring facts. Lena had never kept Eli from him. She'd never changed her number, never sealed records, never lied. The system had been open to him. He just never showed up. Now, through Victor Lane's team of attorneys, she had submitted proof of paternity, medical records, and a psychological assessment citing the importance of continuity and stability in early childhood, all of which supported one conclusion. Nathan had no legal standing, and more importantly, no emotional one either. The letter was signed with a single phrase. For your records, no further action is required. It wasn't a lawsuit. It was a closed door. Nathan sat back, heart hammering, the paper trembling slightly in his hands. He couldn't call her. He couldn't fight her. She had left him nothing to respond to. Only truth, wrapped in quiet precision. He walked to the kitchen, poured the cold coffee down the sink, and stared at the photograph again. In the drawing, the stick figure child held hands with a taller figure. Someone with long hair and what looked like a cape. Lena. Even as a drawing, she looked stronger than him. He placed the envelope on the counter and turned away. But his thoughts didn't follow. They lingered. They dragged him back through years of silence, arrogance, and empty parties filled with people who only knew his net worth, not the parts of him that had once been real. Across town, Lena sat across from Victor in their attorney's office, her fingers resting on her lap. It's done? She asked. Victor nodded. He received it this morning. No response. None expected, Victor said. It's legally airtight. He has no claim. You never denied him access. He denied it to himself. Lena didn't smile. She didn't need to. Instead, she whispered, good. Victor leaned forward, his voice soft. Are you at peace? She thought for a moment, then answered honestly, I'm no longer waiting for him to feel the pain he gave me. That's peace enough. As she left the office and stepped into the spring sun, Lena pulled out her phone and checked a message from Eli's preschool. He'd painted a bird and wanted to show her. She smiled, not because of what she had gained, but because of what she no longer carried. Nathan spent the rest of the day in his mansion, surrounded by things that had once been symbols of success. Now they were just echoes. He poured a drink, set it down untouched, and opened his laptop. He typed, "How to talk to a child you've never met," then deleted it. He wasn't looking for an answer. He was just trying to fill the space he had created with something. Anything that sounded like hope. But silence was all that came back. The park was quiet, just after sunrise. Damp benches, mist curling through the trees, and the gentle rhythm of a city not yet awake. Lena sat on a wooden bench, her coat buttoned to her throat, hands tucked into her lap. Eli played a few yards away, chasing after fallen leaves and throwing sticks for a sleepy golden retriever. She hadn't told him anything yet. Not about today. Not about who they were meeting. She didn't know if she ever would. Nathan approached from across the path, slow, hesitant, as if each step might shatter the morning. He wore no suit, no smile, just a gray sweater and the weight of 3 years he couldn't take back. He stopped a few feet from her. Lena didn't rise. "You came," she said. "I didn't think I should," Nathan replied. "But then I realized that's how everything started. Me not showing up." She looked at him carefully. Older, tired, but not humbled. Not yet. Eli giggled as the dog barked, oblivious to the man watching him like he was seeing a miracle he didn't deserve. "Is that him?" Nathan asked softly. Lena nodded. "He's beautiful. He's whole," she said. "Without you." Nathan winced. "I don't want to make this harder," he said. I thought maybe I could meet him." Lena shook her head slowly. "You don't get to knock on the door of a house you burned down and ask what time dinner is," she said. "I didn't know how to be a father." "Lena, you didn't try." He swallowed hard. "I was scared." "So was I," she replied. "But I didn't leave." They stood in silence, the wind brushing leaves across the path. Nathan finally asked, "Does he know about me?" Lena looked away. "He knows he's loved. He knows he's safe." "That's enough for now." He nodded. Slowly, painfully. "I'm not asking to be in his life today. I just want to start somewhere." Lena stood, pulling her coat tighter. "This isn't the start of anything, Nathan. You don't get to rewrite this." His eyes met hers. "Then what is this?" "This is closure. For me. For you if you want it." He watched Eli laugh again, running in small circles as the dog chased him. "He deserves more than I gave," Nathan whispered. "He deserves what you couldn't give," Lena corrected. "And I've made peace with that." Nathan stepped back, unsure what to do with his hands, with his guilt, with this version of Lena who wasn't broken, but unbothered. "I'm sorry," he said. She nodded. "I believe you." It didn't change anything. And somehow, that was the point. Lena turned and called gently to her son, who came running with flushed cheeks and a handful of pine cones. "Can we go get pancakes?" he asked, tugging on her hand. "Absolutely," she said. As she took Eli's hand and began walking away, Nathan stood frozen. The boy didn't even glance at him. Not once. And Nathan understood, this was not absence. This was consequence. The rain came quietly, tapping gently on the roof of Lena's new home. It wasn't large, not like the townhouse Nathan once promised her. It was a 2-bedroom cottage tucked behind a grove of cedar trees, with a fenced garden Eli helped plant and a mailbox shaped like a turtle. Small, modest, and entirely hers. Inside, the walls were covered in watercolor handprints, framed sketches from gallery friends, and photos of Eli beaming, paint on his nose, rubber boots on the wrong feet. There were no wedding pictures, no trace of who she used to be, only who she'd become. Lena sat at the kitchen table with a mug of chamomile tea, flipping through a parenting magazine. Her phone buzzed. A message from Victor. Landed safely. "We'll call you after the board meeting." She smiled. He'd been traveling more lately, and while their relationship was still undefined, it had grown roots. Not romance forced into bloom, but a trust cultivated slowly, patiently. Victor never tried to replace anyone. He simply stayed. Eli burst through the living room, wearing a superhero cape and one sock. "Mom, I found a worm. Please don't bring it inside," she said, without looking up. He giggled and ran back out. Lena shook her head, laughing under her breath, then turned to her laptop. One new email sat in her inbox. Subject, no reply needed. From Nathan Ward. She stared at it for a full minute before opening it. "Lena, I don't expect this to change anything. I'm not asking for a second chance. I just needed to say it out loud, even if only here. I saw him. I saw what I missed. You built something I thought I didn't need. And now I know I'll never be part of it. That's my fault, not yours. You did everything right. You gave him a life I couldn't have, even if I stayed. I hope one day he knows that you were the best of us. Thank you for raising him into someone good, for never letting him feel my absence, for surviving me. I will not write again. Nathan. Lena read it once, then again, and then closed the laptop without replying. Across the country, Nathan sat on a beachfront patio, the ocean roaring behind him, alone with a half-empty glass of wine and a future that had no anchors. He checked his inbox one last time. No reply came. He nodded to himself. It was what he deserved. And for the first time, he didn't try to fight it. He looked up at the night sky, unrecognizable in its silence, and whispered, "Goodbye." Back in the cottage, Lena stepped outside just as Eli came running toward her, earth-streaked and breathless. "Mom, I named the worm Sparkle." "Of course you did," she smiled, crouching down. "Where's Sparkle now?" "In the garden. I told him this is our home." Lena looked out over the wildflowers they had planted, now sprouting defiantly in uneven rows. "Yes," she said, "it really is." That night, after Eli was asleep and the dishes were done, Lena sat at her desk and opened a fresh canvas. She didn't paint a sunset, or a face, or a house. She painted a boy, holding a balloon, walking into a forest, confident, joyful, looking ahead. No one behind him, only a future filled with light. And Lena smiled softly, realizing that for the first time in years, she wasn't haunted by what left. She was inspired by what stayed.